So here we again at the board. Now you see the position, which is something we had not seen yet in our examples. This is more or less the opening position. We saw tactics basically coming pretty late in the game. We saw many endgames. We saw some middle game positions. And now when you look at this position, you see it is a typical Sicilian position. And it is early in the opening. In fact, it is move 15, white to move. And how does one actually think in order to come to some conclusions in this position? Well, first of all, when looking at this, seeing it is an opening and so on, we should see that black's king is still in the center. This should be like our guideline. And as we see it, the first idea we should develop is to keep this king in the center. And now once we know this, we start to calculate. First we look at queen g7. Always check the captures. And we see after bishop f6, our queen is caught on g7. And basically nothing more to do. So we do not like this, but we see that the possibility of capture is there. Just theoretically, the pawn is hanging. We register this in our mind. We try something else. We try something like f5. And we just wonder what black will be doing. Maybe he goes e5, but this should be pretty good for white. Maybe he does something else. And then you just wonder, why f5? Can't I hit somehow immediately? Can I do maybe bishop e6 immediately once I'm keen to keep his king in the center? And you start checking f takes e6, and now queen g7, and now you see he cannot calculate, he cannot castle, because you calculate that you just take on e7, and you know that he can never castle short anymore, because you just fully destroyed his king side. And you wonder what he can do in this position. You basically are attacking the rook, and if he will go rook f8, you see check, and then you pick up the e6 pawn, and you have 3 pawns for a piece with quite some initiative. But of course, you still have to check the move which made queen g7 impossible in the first place, bishop f6. Now the difference being that now you have queen g6 check, king e7, and at this moment, when you get that far, your first reaction might be that, okay, we tried to sacrifice the piece and nothing happened. Black now threatens rook g8, rook g6. He threatens bishop c3, and basically he's a piece up. But again, now we know black's king is in the center, and this might enable us to create something. And when looking at the position, we start to work against black's threat. That is, we prevent bishop c3, we create the threats of our own, and we work against rook g8 by playing e5. So if you always consider what opportunities does your opponent have, it is very often easier to come to some conclusions which would make sense, because then they would be actually in harmony with the demands of the position in general, and not just with what you wish to achieve. So after e5, what we have to calculate is, of course, first of all, rook g8, because we saw this was black's idea. And now we see that after taking, white can just return, having gained material and a great position. So we have some other things. D takes e5, and here there are many checks, and the possibilities of, like, for instance, playing g5, attacking the bishop, which has nowhere to go. But basically, if we go deeper into the position and start checking some other things, we might find that after rook takes d7, white can still make his attack stronger, because after bishop d7, knight takes e4. Black is completely busted. f6 is hanging, and bishop c5 is a fairly serious threat, so nothing to do. So you still check king d7 and see that basically we can go rook d1 check, and then after king c7 you just pick up the bishop, and although it is not mate yet, you see that basically for the exchange you have really a lot. You are continuing to attack the king, you have pieces which are very active, and that this will probably suffice. And then you might also see that after queen f7 check, king goes to b8, for instance, queen takes f6, also the rook on h8 is hanging, and basically you convince yourself that this is very promising. And we bear in mind that we are still in this position. Of course, after this, you start looking for a good defense for black, and in fact you find knight takes e5, d takes e5, queen takes e5. And there is basically nothing very, very serious for white, because after queen b3, queen takes e3 is possible, queen takes e3, bishop g5, using the pin. And otherwise, just the fight goes on. So basically, white is not winning, but just a fight. But from a practical point of view, it is always very interesting to check some such sacrifices, because your opponent might make a mistake, not find his way amongst the very many possibilities in this real labyrinth of checks and mates. And this was also the case in this game. After e5, my opponent took d takes e5, and as we know, rook takes d7 is pretty strong. He took king takes d7, rook d1. He tried to run in the other direction, not to c7 but to e7, and now as we know, g5 catches the bishop. And after rook f8, we already did what we could do with the tactics. We came as far, and now we know that we are regaining the piece on f6 and attacking the king on e7. And now it is important not to relax and to try to find the most precise way. So you see, if I take on f6, he takes, I go check, he plays rook f7, and now I just have to go back with my queen, losing a bit of time. And it is good in chess to be ambitious and to try to get every line in as good a version as possible. So if you bear this in mind, then it occurs to you that you give a check first, and after rook f7, g takes f6, king f6, queen takes h6, check, king d7, you get the same position with the gain of time. And now we are continuing to attack, and in fact the material is already equal by now. Black is exchange up, but already for some pawns and for a serious initiative, and basically what white is missing is just one final blow. And it would be nice, you see, to give a bishop g5 check, but at the moment it is not really possible because of the f4 pawn, and after f takes e5, maybe he will take queen e5, bishop g5 check, king goes, and maybe the active queen in the center would allow him some possibilities because he controls the h square. And now again you try to make the same idea work in the best possible way. So you saw that on e5 queen can be pretty active, so you do just the same without allowing the queen to play f5, hitting the e6 pawn and creating the threat of bishop g5, and basically black is mated after several checks. So like rook takes f5, queen g7, rook f7, bishop g5, king d8, queen g8, and queen e6 check. So basically there is nothing to play for anymore, and after f5 my opponent resigned. So to draw some conclusions from these games, first of all, we see also, like in my game against Grishuk, very strong grandmasters can sometimes miss certain things and can make mistakes. And also we once again saw the importance of not being satisfied with a mere strategic achievement, and the usefulness of being ambitious and looking for the strongest move in a tactical position. And thus we proceed with our work.